a lot to come for the Houston Texans in terms of the offseason. But one of those next few steps that the Texans have to start deciding on is which of their own they keep in-house, because they have expiring contracts. They have the Laramie Tunsil, how do we want to call this, conundrum, where he wants to be the highest paid left tackle. He's telling everybody in the world that he wants to stay in Houston forever. He wants to be part of the rebuild, all of that stuff. Which players that are either asking for new contracts or had their contract expire should the Texans be interested in bringing back? We'll get to the Laramie Tunsil because I think we need to look at that in two separate conversations.
Titus Howard would be towards the top of the list, right?
Titus Howard's one where you have to, like, he still has a year left on the deal, but he's in that situation where, where he has the fifth-year option on the rookie deal where you start thinking contract extension. So that is a decision they might make this offseason.
Yeah, I think that, looking at him, depending on the price that he's asking for and the fact he's been here his whole career, and look, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been awful. He's been versatile. They've used him all over the place. But I think last year he was very solid. I think that he's a guy they should consider extending and keeping around. And it seems like he's part of the culture, though he bought into Deshaun and he's had a couple of other things, but nothing that's, earth-shattering or against culture. I think he's a good fit. I would do it, again, within reason, unless he completely tries to break the bank. I think it's a guy you bring back.
I'm good keeping Titus Howard. You're right. Obviously, it depends on the contract. That's part of the whenever people talk about contracts and trades, oh, you got to trade him. Oh, you got to extend him. Okay, well, what's the secondary part of that conversation? What are you getting in return if it's a trade? What is the contract extension if you're extending him? Do you want to lock up Titus Howard? Yeah, you want to lock up Titus Howard. But what if I tell you that he wants the most money of any right tackle? That's where you're saying, well, he's not worth
exactly.
that. So you're right. It depends on if you break the bank. Looking at some of the free agents that are coming off the books for the Houston Texans, there's nothing really – there's a couple of names that you could be interested in wanting back, but there's nothing where you're going to, lose sleep over.
Rex Burkhead?
Rex Burkhead is an unrestricted free agent.
Oh, he has to come back. He's part of the culture.
People crush Rex Burkhead. I don't hate Rex Burkhead as a third down running back. I mean, he's pretty good catching the ball in the backfield.
You've coined the phrase "the fighting Rex Burkhead."
Right. He's mid. He's average. But he belongs in the NFL.
He is the leader and definition of average. But if you're a good locker room guy, you can hang around.
I think he adds some things to the running back room. If you have say you're keeping 4 running backs, he's a good option to have out of the backfield catching the football.
Yeah, he can catch. Yeah. He's not going to wow you with his speed or his ability to shake guys off, but he's steady, and you know what? He's smart. He's going to do what you need him to do in the short times you use him. As long as you don't have to use him too much, he can be fine as a piece.
But that said, if he leaves, whatever. No one's going to lose sleep over that. The Texans have all but said that they have one quarterback, which is true. Kyle Allen, Jeff Driscoll, free agents, but the way that they've talked about that quarterback room, saying that we have one, kind of lets you know that Allen and Driscoll are out the door. You look at some of the receivers who are unrestricted free agents, like Brandon Cooks is not, but there's a lot of talk that maybe they move on from Brandon Cooks, depending on the cost, a conversation that's going to go on all offseason. It's going to be one of the lead stories for the Houston Texans all offseason. Chris Moore, Phillip Dorsett, whatever. Those are just average guys. One of the names at the tight end spot, actually there's 2 that you might be interested in bringing back. A lot of people like the potential of an O.J. Howard. Didn't show much after week 1. And then a lot of people loved Jordan Akins 2.0 with the Houston Texans last year.
Yeah, no, you know what? And those are 2 guys for depth I would look at. I think O.J. Howard is a guy that I still feel like is an untapped resource. I feel like he got caught coming in late. It was a good pickup, I thought. Obviously, in the first week that he played, he got a touchdown and everybody started losing their mind. They finally got a tight end, and then he fell off and disappeared, and then they worked him in a little bit. But I think in a new system with a guy that's still young with plenty of tread on the tires that came in pretty highly heralded from college, I'd give him another shot. I'd let him, see what he can do and see if this new system's better fit for him. And then from there, depending on what you do in the draft, I got to believe they're looking at tight end in the draft somewhere.
Right. See, that's what's difficult about this, though, is that all of these decisions, for the most part, are decisions you're going to have to make pre-draft. Because free agency, at least the bulk of free agency, happens before April 27th. You always have the summer free agency market, like the waiver market, the cut market. But most of these guys are going to be signed by April 27th. So you have to kind of make that decision before you even enter the draft, which is kind of weird because I'm sure the Texans rather have the draft and then see how they could fill the holes after the draft, but the Texans won't have that luxury, obviously. I could see the Texans going either way there. Like O.J. Howard, Jordan Akins, they liked what they got from
if you
Quentin
had to pick
Tarantino.
one of the 2, who would it be?
Jordan Akins is older than people think. Jordan Akins, I think, is going to be 30 years old next year.
He's the Texans version of...
Jordan Akins already is 30. He's going to be 31 next year. He played minor league baseball.
Yeah.
So
he's the Texans version of Tate for the Rockets.
Yeah, kind of.
Jayshawn Tate.
Like a versatile role player.
But everybody thinks Jayshawn Tate's 22.
Right.
And he's 27, 28.
Yeah. Like you mentioned Tate's name, you mentioned Jordan Akins' name, you're like, oh, dang.
Yep.
All right. The offensive line free agents, Justin McCray, Scott Quisenberry, nobody's going to lose sleep there. You look at some of the front seven guys, Rasheem Green, I don't think anybody's losing sleep there. The interesting name to me is Agbania Okoronkwo, Obo, as we like to call him. A lot of people liked what they saw from him last season. I think Caserio kind of got this wrong. Not that he brought him in, that he only gave him a 1-year deal. Because that's the kind of dude you would love to have had on a 2-year deal, relatively cheap.
He's got local connections, right? He's local.
I'm not sure.
I think he's a local kid.
So that's a decision you have to make. Honestly, I think that's the most difficult decision the Houston Texans are going to have to make with one of their own. What they bring him back for and the cost. Because he played well enough, because he was making, $2.5 million last year, $3 million last year. I think he might get up to like $7 or $8 million in the offseason.
It's weird because when I watched him and when you went back and watched it where you could stop and just, kind of, flip around when I was watching games that I had recorded, there were plays that he was exceptional, and there were plays that he just disappeared or just looked like he took plays off. So I understand that he was active when he was playing hard, but someone's got to be. Maybe D'Amico's that guy that brings it out of him, that you get it in a more consistent way throughout the entire game. But look, as you need as many young pieces as you can get, and he's a guy that could wreak some havoc, that could do some things when he's out there. So I'm fine bringing him back. It just, again, everything matters by price. What if he's going to try and get 8 to 10? Now I'm going to be a little hesitant and look at it a little differently than if I would be able to get him for about the same price I got him a year ago.
Yeah. See, I think he's played himself to a much bigger contract. It's why I wish Caserio's been
up a little bit,
and he's normally done that. Like Jerry Hughes. Jerry Hughes was a 2-year deal
on a cheap. Yeah. Like if he gets the right price, he'll give you an extra year.
Caserio's been pretty good at signing these stopgap free agents on 2-year deals where the second year is not really guaranteed. Steven Nelson, I think it was a 3-year deal.
That's good because I like him.
Yeah, Steven Nelson. Now, Tavier Thomas is one you might have a decision on. Actually, Steven Nelson was 2 years. He's free after the 2023 season, which will be interesting to see the Texans bring in cornerback there. A good call on Obo, by the way. He good recall. He's from A-Leaf Taylor. He was a Lion from A-Leaf Taylor. See, I want him back. I think he's your best in terms of you could probably mention Jerry Hughes here. You might throw John Grenard into the conversation a little bit, although I thought John Grenard, an injury played a huge part of this.
Fell
incredibly
off
disappointing.
Yeah.
And maybe D'Amico can bring the best out of him, but incredibly, we were talking about Grenard emerging as a guy who could get double-digit sacks. Injuries obviously played a huge factor. I wouldn't feel comfortable that he's ever going to get 10 sacks in a single season over the course of his career. So Ogbo's an interesting conversation on what the Texans do in the offseason.